Alrighty, well, we finished up the speaker cabinet conversation, and now I want to hear the story about what happened to you in the late '80s in Memphis. The story you told me that I liked so much when you had a
That
guest.
that one story.
The one about the one certain person who visited you
Okay.
in Memphis.
Okay. So it's 80 something. I don't remember the year. Okay.
Probably around '88, something like that.
I don't know. Maybe earlier than that. I think it was earlier than that. But anyway, long story short, or a short story long.
Short story long, yeah. Let's make the short story long.
Okay. So suppose you were some guy that just flew into Memphis, right? And you checked into like the famous Peabody Hotel. It's really, Memphis's posh hotel.
Fancy.
Is that a word? Did I use that right word?
Posh, yeah,
Yeah,
posh
all
would
right.
be right.
And then you it's 100 degrees out, 100% humidity. It's Memphis in the summertime, right? And you walked out the front door of the Peabody, and you took a right, and you just started walking, okay? And you had like a black biker leather jacket on, like what you had on when you got on the plane in England. And you had like engineer boots on and stuff. And you started walking up Union Ave. Union Ave is a huge street in Memphis, and it goes almost the whole length of the city. And I had moved to Memphis at some point in that time and had set up a shop on Union Ave. And that shop was in a little strip of about 4 or 5 stores. And if you were walking that way, you would eventually get to it by the time you had sweated to death from the Peabody. And in my, there was a flower store, then my store, and then some picture framer store or something. And my store had these bay windows, but they were all curtained off, so you couldn't look in. But in the bay windows, I had guitars I was building, with wood chips around them, in all different stages of construction, And so this person's looking in the window, and this is a guy that cares nothing about anything but guitars and music and stuff, right? That's his whole life. So he starts pounding on the door, because I was always closed. I was back there working. I was building and repairing guitars. And people would call me usually before they come over. So I open the door, and there's this guy standing there, sweating to death in this leather jacket and stuff, right? And I said, so can I help you? And he goes, well, yeah, you got guitars in here, right? I'm like, come on in, but you got to walk around the motorcycle in front of the front door and everything. And have all these arch tops hanging in that room. Stuff that I had, they were all broken up, and I had fixed them and repaired them and was, put them up for sale for an affordable price for nice old Epiphones and stuff like that. They were nice old arch tops. And this guy comes in, and he's playing these things, and he's playing very well. He's playing jazz and stuff, and all kinds of, and so he buys a bunch of them from me, and says, I'm only in town for a few days, so I'll come back and get them, and we'll pack them up and all that. And he trusts me, and he seemed like a real trustworthy guy too, So I was like, yeah, a cool guy too. All right, good. Then he says, well, I'm trying to find Sun Studios. How do I get there? And I give him directions to walk up there, and he says, and what are you doing tonight? And I said, what I always do, I go carousing around town, looking for good music and stuff like that. So he says, well, can you come pick me up at the Peabody Hotel and show me around town? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, So anyway, this goes on for a week, right? Literally every night.
Going out to the bars and
I'm
stuff.
showing this guy all about Memphis, all the really cool old blues clubs, and it's on him. I mean, he knows, like, I wasn't, like, at that time making a bunch of money, so he was buying drinks all night, like the money was just flowing for,
Buying all the guitars.
Yeah. So, we were having a grand old time, and I wanted to show him the legendary Shawn Lane. Because I used to do, any of my friends that come into town, I would have to take them over to meet Shawn and hear Shawn play,
You were friends with Shawn at the time.
So it was that night he was finally playing at that big club in Alfred's on Beale. It's a big night for them. It was like a Friday or a Saturday night or something, and they packed that place, And so I go waltzing in there with this guy that I know as Joe. That's how he just gave me his name, Joe. That's all I knew, And So, and it's funny because he probably either thought I knew who he was, I didn't care, and that's cool, or I was an idiot. I didn't know who the hell he was. But I didn't really listen to that kind of music. I didn't have a TV. I didn't watch MTV. There was no hint to it in his guitar playing, because usually, I can tell the signature sound of almost any guitar player that I've heard before. So there was no hint. I mean, he was just playing like jazz and stuff, like really good, like a really good player, not somebody you'd think is a pop star, So, I bring him in there, and there's tons of people in there, and I'm really good friends with the band, and Rob Caudill, the guy that was the front man for that band, and bass player and the singer and everything,
For the Willys?
Yeah, for the Willys, Shawn's band, And so he comes up to me, and he obviously knows who the guy is, and he's like, dude, you know him? I'm like, oh yeah, we're pals. We've been hanging out all week. I still don't know who he is, okay? So it's funny because, so Rob says to me, well, Joe's here tonight, Joe Walsh, he's coming. And because, those guys all hung out like that. And he said, so, we're calling people up because you think he'll play if I call him up? And I'm like, yeah, shit, the guy's a really good guitar player, man. He played in my shop. So Rob knows who he is. All those guys know. I don't know who he is, right? And I've been hanging around with the guy all week. So we're standing.
So you're the buffoon.
We're standing in the back of the club there, and he's looking at me going, Who is this guy? I said, well, I'll introduce you to him, after the show. But I mean, and he's like, I've never seen anything like this, Shawn Lane. He was like baffled, he was loving it so much.
Joe was that saying about Shawn Lane?
Yeah, the guy who I only knew as Joe.
Right.
And then the other Joe Walsh, shows up, and Rob sees him out there and calls him up on the stage. And so Joe Walsh gets up there, and when he got up on the stage, I mean, he would just take over the whole thing because of his persona, right? I mean, the guy, in those days, we were all lit, all right? But I'm going to tell you, that guy could be like smashed, okay? And get up and grab a guitar, get up on the stage and grab a guitar, and the music would just flow out of him, even if it looked like he was going to fall over and couldn't even hold the guitar.
Right, from imbibing and whatnot.
From what?
Imbibing, drinking.
Yeah, I don't even know what that word means. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was just such a musician, And so he's up there and he plays a couple of songs, and then Rob says in the mic over to Joe Walsh, he says, Joe Strummer's here tonight. Let's call him up on the stage, right? Because he hadn't asked Joe, because Joe walked in the middle of a set, and Joe's looking at him, and this is a private joke that's not private anymore unless you were there that night. Now everyone who watches this video knows. But it was so funny because Rob is saying that, and I'm like, I know who Joe Strummer is, right? I mean, so now all of a sudden, and I'm lit too, and I'm thinking, shit, man, I've been hanging around with Joe Strummer all week, right? So Joe Walsh is like, no. And Rob is like, yeah, Joe Strummer's here. And he goes, no. He goes, my drummer's not here, man. Joe's drummer,
Yeah.
And Rob's like, no, Joe Strummer. And Joe keeps going, no, my drummer's not here, man. Because he knew who he walked in the club with, right? His drummer's in some other state somewhere, right? And so Rob, just points over at me and Joe, and I said, he's calling you, man. And he's like, so
you tried to be cool, like you knew all along.
That's the funniest thing. I'm like, I know who you are. and we hung out, a few days after that, and there was no speaking of it. It was just like it was before. You know what I mean? But it's a funny story. It's one of my many stories of the music business, the ins and outs of the music business. My drummer's not here, man.
But Joe and Shawn got to meet.
Oh yeah. And Strummer got up on the stage, and I don't remember what they played. They played one of his songs, I think. London Calling, or what was the other big hit that everybody
I
knows?
don't know what they had back then. I actually really liked the Clash, and I would have recognized him.
But he didn't get to play with Shawn
had all the records.
because Shawn gave up his guitar for Strummer, or maybe Walsh grabbed that guitar. I don't know, but anyway, Shawn wasn't on the stage at that point. You know what I mean? So maybe that's something that could have been a little different, but it wasn't. But everyone loved to stop in and play with Shawn.
Of course.
Like Billy Gibbons, he it was really something. One night, I don't think it was the same night. I think it was a different night. Joe showed up, but it was the same club, and they were doing Hotel California, right? And in Joe's mind, Joe Walsh, there's two distinctive guitar parts going on in that song, especially in the solo. Felder, whatever his name is, he plays the one part, and Joe plays the other part. Well, Shawn played that song at every gig because it was a popular song at the gig. And Shawn played everybody's part. and stuff they didn't play. I mean, all the missing links of, he would play a part, and then later on that night I would say, show me what you played there, in that part right there. And he would play it, and it wasn't nothing. It was nothing, but it sounded like so much of everything.
He had a real gift.
When he did it, yeah. So Joe couldn't figure that out. It was like he even stopped in the middle of the song and was like, you're supposed to be playing his part. I'm playing my part, right?
Oh, Joe was playing with Shawn.
Yeah. And Shawn wasn't doing it exactly, splitting the guitar parts in the record. Because it's even hard to tell who's who on the record, you know what I mean? And got
any old videos of that stuff? Did anybody videotape?
You know what? All these kids ask me that stuff, right? And you know the answer to that. What did none of us ever have on us?
A camera.
Well, who carried a camera back then?
Yeah.
We actually lived our lives. These kids now, everything is, whoa, look at this
fool. I thought you said you had a few videotapes of stuff. I mean, I don't know what you would have used to tape it because.
No. I have stuff that people gave me.
Oh, okay.
Because there was always a nerd in life, whether you were in high school or something, that had some big giant camera.
The latest technology.
But you'd call him a nerd back then, but really, in reality, he was the future. They
were the historian.
Exactly. They were the future. So, but
well, you've shared this story now, so the people who weren't there now know that you were there.
Yeah, but it's a funny story Michelle wanted to hear. Peace out.